Page 76. Oh, I prostrate to the Arya triple gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on Massavulcha's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this correctly and repeatedly, beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata gate gate para samgate bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. We continue on the next page. I and all surrounding sentient beings go for refuge to the Buddha, go for refuge to the Dharma, go for refuge to the Sangha. We prostrate to the Great Mother, Prajnaparamita, surrounded by all the children and by the assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. By depending on my prostrations to all of you, may these words of truth be actualized. In the past, the Deva King Indra dispelled the Maras by reflecting on the profound meaning of the wisdom gone beyond and reciting the profound words in daily recitation. In that same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of the Great Mother, Prajnaparamita, and recite the profound words in daily recitation. May all diseases, spirit possessions, bad conditions, all the negative directions, that which happens due to past karma and immediate conditions, may all this be dispelled. May it become non-existent. May it be pacified. We'll do the short mandala offering, so you go forward to either page 97 or 98, depending upon the version of the prayer book you have. For some, it will start on the bottom of 97, for the rest on the top of 98. So we'll do this first prayer in Tibetan, and then we'll do the second prayer, the request to turn the wheel of Dharma in English. O Sahajivoki Shushin Meto Shramrira Linchi Nidegen Padi Sangye Shindu Mite Uvari Dokun Nadar Shimpa Chopasho. O holy and perfect your Lama, from the clouds of compassion that formed in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release the rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami Sangye Chodam Soki Chodam La Chanchu Bardu Dagni Kyatsuchi Dagi Chodam Gi Pesonam Gi Drala Jola Penchir Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chodam Soki Chodam La Jamchu Bardu Dagni Kyatsuchi Dagi Chodemgi Pesonamgi Jola Penchir Sangye Drupasho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So, good morning, everyone, again.
Good morning.
Before we start the class again, maybe we take a few moments to settle down our mind and body by focusing on that. Then generate or cultivate a good intention for being here. Maybe we can think that may my time here during the sessions be most beneficial, helpful to myself and all sentient beings. May it be cause and conditions to overcome our angers and other distracted emotions. May it be cause and condition to achieve our full potential, the fully enlightened state, as quick as possible. So we can be most beneficial, helpful, meaningful for all sentient beings. 함께 도전에 손에 따오던데 방배제 담배춘데 던제배 고던데 라자서 So just to summarize a little bit what we discussed last week, that whenever we experience pain, sufferings, difficulty in our life, which might have been contributed by someone else, of course, when we think that someone is creating so much harm, pain in your life, then of course we become naturally, normally, as ordinary beings, we become upset, angry. But here, when we try to practice the Bodhisattva's way of life for betterness of ourselves and others, then we have to let it go, our anger and our hatred. And the way to do is, instead of feeling that someone is creating so much pain and problem in your life, thinking that there are so many, not just one cause and condition, there are so many hundreds, if not thousands of causes and conditions which are coming together to create that situation, that event, which lead you to experience that pain, suffering, and which lead you to bear anger. So if we understand it is not just one cause and condition, but there are so many hundred causes and conditions involved there, so many unseen causes and conditions involved there, then we don't hold so much strong anger and hatred for one person for creating one of the causes and conditions. It is among hundreds of causes and conditions, that is only one cause and conditions. And so therefore, through that kind of reflecting, contemplating, that kind of analyzing, then we try to let it go of blaming everything for that person's, and then generating anger and hatred. So I guess if we just summarize that in a short, I think that was what we discussed last week. I think we finished verse number 32, is that so? And I think we are on 33, yeah? Yeah. So again, I think I did mention it last week, but I just want to remind that there will be a time for question and answer at the end. So we will have it at the end for questions, and yeah. So verse number 33, so when one sees an enemy or even a friend committing an improper actions, by thinking that such thing arise from conditions, I shall remain in happy frame of mind. Again, when we see whether it's enemy whom we dislike or someone, even our friends, close ones, when we see them engage in some improper actions, not healthy actions, not a useful actions, maybe even harmful actions to oneself and others. Again, instead of totally blaming for that person's, for that actions, we try to understand why that person is acting in that way. By understanding that person is not acting because he or she has total control of his thoughts, his mind, or her mind, and then she decides to do that, but because he or she does not have control over his own thoughts, mind, emotions, feelings, which is totally kind of driven, controlled by some other conditions, such as their own delusions, and maybe karma. So, by understanding the person, even though the action that he or she is engaging is not proper, is not a good one, is not healthy, is harmful, but at the same time, we understand why he or she is acting that way. we understand that he or she is not acting because there is some kind of unseen, I don't know whether maybe that was the right word, but because he or she is totally under the influence or control by other conditions, such as their own delusions. One of the delusions, it could be ignorance, jealousy, pride, attachment, anger, whatever, or also involvement of unseen karmic things and many other things. By seeing that, then we try to let go of blaming everything for that person and holding grudges, anger, hatred for that person. And without having any anger and hatred, we try to live our state, we try to be more stable, more peace, more calm as much as possible. If we can do that, then of course our life would be much more better. To be able to remain our mind in the happy frame of mind, or to be able to be calm, peace, stable all the time. And I think we all want to be calm, peace, stable all the time. We don't want to disturb our minds, emotions. And so one of the reasons why our mind is disturbed is because when we allow ourselves to be angry and hatred and grudge and so forth, so one way of overcoming that anger is by seeing this way, reflect and contemplate from that this perspective. Then the verse number 34, if things were brought into being by choice, then since no one wished to suffer, suffering would not occur to any embodied creatures. So here is saying, when someone acts in such improper way, unhealthy, unskillful, harmful way, it's not because he or she wished to do that. Not because he or she want to create harm, problems, difficulties, but a lot of time because he or she doesn't have control over that action, over that emotions. If it was totally under our control, if everything was under our control, our actions, our emotions, our feeling was total under our control, why would we suffer? No one of us want to suffer. We do not wish any pain, suffering. And if everything is under our control, we will never experience pain and suffering. Even though we do not wish pain and suffering, we still experience pain and suffering. That means we have no total control over such experiences. And if that is the case, that is the same with others. No, so because they don't have, it's not that they wish to create so much pain and suffering to others and oneself, but because a lot of time we cannot control ourselves, our feelings, our emotions. With that understanding, then we try to again kind of let go of anger and hatred and negative feeling toward that person. Because a lot of time we feel that they have total control, and despite having control, they make decision to bring harm to us, or they make a decisions or wish to create that kind of destructive actions. A lot of time they have no control of that. They don't wish that to happen, but it gets out of control, and they engage in that. And just as same, time to time we also do that every time, once a while, if not every day. very often. We do not wish to engage in any harmful speech, thought, actions, and we try very hard. We try very hard not to engage in any harmful actions, thoughts, or speech. But sometimes we lose our mind due to many different circumstances. Sometimes we lose our mind, we get out of control. And because of that, then we engage in a very harmful actions, thought, and speeches. And later, when we are more calm, when we regain our mind, then we regret it. We regret it for having done such a harmful, having such harmful thoughts or speech or actions. We regret. So what it shows is we don't wish such actions, but at the point sometimes we lose our mind, we become out of control and we do that. So we use that same analysis to others, why he or she is acting that way. He or she is acting this way is like one of the time when I lose my mind. Not because I wish, but just I couldn't control and I lose my mind. Therefore he or she is also in similar situation at the moment. So when we understand that, we might not agree with his or her actions, but we understand why he or she is acting that way. And with that, when we understand that, then we are able to let it go of the anger, hatred, or negative feelings, and to remain peace and calm. To be able to remain peace and calm, which is so important for ourselves and for people around ourselves. As I've been reminding all through, it is not only important to have peace, calm, and stability in our life, for ourselves, for everyone around us. If I'm more happy, if I'm more peaceful, if I'm more calm, it affects positively people who are around me all the time. If I'm agitated, angry, disturbed, not only it affects me, it affects people, everyone around me. So therefore, it is so important. Yeah. So it is the same thing. If everything's come because we have total control and choice, we all want happiness, joy, peace all the time. And we try very hard. But again, peace, joy, happiness doesn't come just because we wish it. And same with the suffering. And then verse number 35. Through not being careful, people even harm themselves with the thorn and other things. And for sake of obtaining women and lack, they become obsessed and derive themselves food. So here he's talking about, again, Shantideva was discussing that when we are not careful and mindful, then without us noticing, without us being aware of that, negative thoughts arises such as anger, hatred, attachment, jealousy, and pride, and so forth. And due to those negative emotions or destructive emotions, because we are not careful enough, because we are not mindful enough, those thoughts arises and it overtakes us. When it overtakes us, then people harm themselves. When I've overtaken my delusions over myself, sometimes I harm myself. Not only I harm others, I harm within myself. For some time people, for example, sometimes when people have so much strong lust, attachment, obsessions, craving, whether it's with a woman, man, or any other objects, and you really want those objects. And when you don't get that, when you are unable to get those objects, then you get frustrated and angry. And when you get frustrated and angry, then the chances of harming others and yourself increases. In some cases, people beat up themselves, cut themselves. Yeah, and that not only happens with people who have biologically or mental problems, but even people who have mentally healthy, but when they are in that state of mind, when they lose their mind and when they are... I've seen people who cut themselves with a kind of razors and like that, because they were so, let's say, obsessed or attached to something, and then they have some conflict, and then they get so angry, and then that is when they started to harm themselves. In some cases, because then that with that kind of frustrations, anger, then that slowly that sometimes lead to depressions. Trying to feel that you are unworthy because you are not kind of accepted, or you didn't get the object that you are, and you feel you have been rejected. And because of that, then you begin to feel you are unworthy. And because of that, then you begin to harm yourself. And of course, in a serious matter, people even take their lives. I mean, it would probably come. But here, and they punish themselves. They punish themselves by starving themselves. And sometime I was discussing with one of friends who said, for similar situation, because things were not going well in their life, the way they wish their life to go, there was a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, and life was not going smoothly as you were planning. And because you have a lot of attachment, you wanted that, this and that, and those are not happening. And because you feel so bad about your life, so as a way of punishing yourself, you started to drink a lot, you started to smoke a lot, knowing that this will kill you, knowing that this will take your life, but you wanted to take your life because of that. So therefore, you started to drink, you started to smoke, to kind of punish yourself. And that is what happens. So it's because of they are so obsessed, so much strong attachment, so much strong lust, and so much strong craving, and when they are unable to get that, then that is where it leads to that kind of other emotions, and then that lead to kind of deriving themselves, food starving themselves, or harming themselves with doing that kind of things. And 36. And there are some who injure themselves, as I said before, through the unmeritorious deeds of hanging themselves, living off the cliff, eating poisons and unhealthy food. So as I just mentioned, so that's what happens. In extreme cases, people take their own life. It's very unfortunate, but that is, and if you go a lot of time, of course, a lot of time, people take their life because they feel unworthy, no meaning in their life, depressions, of course, strong depressions where they feel there is no meaning in their life, there is no worthy, no value of living again. And a lot of those depressions comes when we have strong attachment. You are attached to certain things so strongly And then when you are unable to accomplish or get those objects, so again, yeah, so much attachment, and because you can't get it, then you become frustrated and angry with yourself. And also angry with others. And because of that, then you lose your mind and you feel you are unworthy, you are not good for nothing. And you see there is no meaning in your life. In verse number 37, if when under the influence of disturbing conceptions, people will even kill their treasured self, how can they be expected not to cause harm to the bodies of other living beings? So here Shantideva explained verse number 35 and 36 how when people are under the influence of such strong anger, hatred, frustrations, so forth, how they harm themselves and take even their own life. Normally, we cherish our lives so strongly. Our life, our existence, cherished so strongly. When you notice there is slices, even the very slices, very small slices, obstacles for your life, you get very upset and angry. That just shows how much you cherish it. How much we cherish it. Even though we cherish so much, even when you have a small kind of prick, or small, by let's say mosquito, when it hits, it's a very like being put by needles, very small. Just for 1 second or less than 1 second, just only small. Even that we get quite upset and angry. That just shows how much we cherish. That is why we cherish, and we can't stand slices, harm, pain. That's normal, that's how we are. But when we are under the influence of such frustration, depression, angry with yourself, your life, angry with the whole world, whole society, and so forth, then they even take the life which they cherish so much in their life. If that is the cases, so here Shantideva was making a point, reason. If that's the cases, why would you expect that he or her not to harm someone else? Do you get it? When he is willing to harm the things he cherishes, he or she most in his or her life. Does it make sense? Yeah, it is like this is in our ordinary life, this my whole life is everything. This is the everything. Whole life involved around this life. It's like the main for my existence. The whole other one has to relate with this main one. And so we put so much effort to keep it alive, to cherish it so much. But when we lose our mind due to those anger, then you even take your life. So if that's the cases, when I lose my mind, I wouldn't have any kind of hesitations to harm someone else. Do you get what I mean? When I'm willing to take my most cherishing part of my life, why would I have any hesitation to harm someone else when I'm in that state? So that is what it is saying. So with that kind of understanding, what we understand is such persons, when they act in a not so positive, healthy, healthy but very harmful way, unhealthy, harmful way, then again we try to understand why he or she is doing that way. We are not saying what he or she does is right, correct, but we try to understand why he or she is acting that way. Why he or she is harming, causing a harm to you or to your dear ones, near ones, or to other sentient beings. Why he or she is engaged in such a harmful actions. Because he or she is totally out of her mind, his mind. Because he or she is totally lost, his or her mind, and totally overwhelmed and totally kind of controlled by that anger and those negative emotions. And then you begin to understand when he or she, that mind, not only he or she is harming us, it's possible he or she might take his or her own life. There is danger of that. So therefore with that, we begin to have some understanding of that person and why he or she is acting that way. So when we have that, then it is easier for us to kind of let go of the anger, hatred, and negative feelings, emotion that we might have with him or her. So understanding that is like, let's say it is like that in a hospital where some people are mentally distorted, yeah, totally lost their mind, totally distorted, and someone, let's say a nurse, doctor is trying to help, but then because their mind, they are out of their mind, they are trying to harm the doctors or nurse. In those stages, the doctor and nurse understand that. They don't get angry and hatred. They understand that he or she is acting that way because he or she is out of mind. So they don't get so angry, but still understand their situation, try to help them to calm down, how to make them calm down, how to... So that is because they totally understand, they don't agree with what he or she is doing, trying to harm them or trying to help them, but at the same time they don't have anger and hatred because they understand total situation, that person's, the mental or health situations. Same way, that is here is explaining, same way, it is same. When someone's doing that, he or she is similar situations. Maybe not on biological level, but on mental level, he or she in same situations. So with that kind of understanding, then we shouldn't have any anger and hatred, but instead, more understanding, caring, love, compassion, if possible, and trying to help instead of getting angry and trying to harm back, trying to help. So that is what is the concept of this verse. Then verse number 38. Even if I cannot develop compassion for all such people who through the arousal or disturbing conceptions set out to try and kill me and so forth, the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. It will be quite challenge when someone come try to kill you and to have the compassion. For us, even someone criticize us, that itself is just hard enough. Hard enough to have compassion. Hard enough, forget about compassion, hard enough to even stay calm and not to get upset and angry. But when you are engaging and trying to practice the Bodhisattva path, that is what we try to train ourselves to be. And we have the capacity, ability to reach to this point. There is the potential, there is the capacity, the ability to be able to have a compassion, even in such extreme situation where someone might be trying to kill you. But of course, again, we shouldn't be kind of fooling ourselves and pretend that we are in already that state. So when someone being under the slave of their own destructive emotions, delusions, afflictive emotions, under their own internal enemy of those delusions, when they engage into some harmful actions through speech or physically harming, or even having harmful thoughts and so forth, with that understanding, we all explained before that they are acting in that way because they are under the control, influence of those delusions, and they have no control over that, at least at that state, at that point, or that state. Because of that, then with that total understanding, then we try not to get angry. If we can, if possible, we try to generate a compassion for them. If we cannot develop a compassion for them, at least try not to have anger, hatred, and grudges, and resentment, all the negative feelings and thoughts. So again, I think it's the same thing as I give an example in hospital with people with mentally distorted people. If we understand that when someone is under the influence of those delusions, they are in similar situations. At least at that point, they are similar situation. If we understand that, it open the space for us to develop compassion. If we understand that situations, it's just like nurse, doctor understand the patients. Instead of getting angry, they can understand. They can develop love and compassion. That how much painful experience that he or she is going through. Instead of anger, they develop a compassion, sense of care, sense of wanting to do help, because they totally understand the exact nature of that disease, and because they understand the exact nature of that disease, and they understand that person's acting because of that diseaseness, it allows them to even have a compassion instead of anger. Same way, if we are able to understand similar situations when someone is totally in that stage, one of those delusions, strong delusions such as anger, they lose their mind, and that itself is a disease. Maybe it might not be biologically disease, but it's emotional, mental disease. And emotional and mental disease is much more worse than physical disease. So when we understand that he or she is acting in that way because that disease, the mental or emotional disease, has manifested now. It's manifested, that disease which does not manifest all the time, but it manifests time to time, such an internal mental disease of those delusions has arisen and manifested. And because as a consequences of that manifestation, that disease, they are acting that way. Once that disease is like when you, in the medicine, when you give the shot, it helps them to calm down because that energy, whatever that is bothering them biologically, if they bring them and they become more calm. In same way, the moment that mental disease, internal disease decreases, then their responses due to that also changes. Before they were shouting, angry, and slowly their mind calmed down, that disease calmed down, and then they say, I'm sorry. They apologize. They feel it was wrong. So that you can see, their action changes immediately from very aggressive to very gentle, from very gentle to very aggressive. And that action's response changes according to what state of mind they are in. So therefore, their actions is very much kind of influenced by their state of mind. And when they have those negative state of mind, delusions, it just become out of control, and that they're responding that way. So if we understand that truly, from not just here, but if we really understand from here of that situation, that understanding, actually instead of getting angry and hatred, it can open up us to have compassion, love, and better understanding. So that is what we should try to do, if possible. Try to understand, just similar like the patients in the hospital. And even we cannot develop love and compassion, at least we try not to get angry and not to hold any negative thoughts such as resentment, grudges, bad feelings, and so on. We try to let it go as soon as possible. If we can do that, immediately there is peace, calm in our mind. We are training ourselves and creating new positive habits instead of responding with the anger and hatred all the time. We are learning, training how to respond with more peace and calm, and slowly that becomes our more habitual pattern of responding. Instead of all the time immediately that we feel that we need to respond with anger and hatred, and then slowly that becomes our habitual pattern. Then once it becomes habitual pattern, it becomes very difficult to change it, even if we want to change it. So the moment you choose to respond in that way, immediately there's peace, calm, stability in your heart, in your life at that moment. Also, you are starting to change the previous unhealthy habitual way of responding with anger and hatred. Now you are learning how to respond with more peace and calm instead of anger and hatred. You are creating positive seed, positive karmic seeds, or positive potential to respond that way again in the future. We are creating cause and condition to cultivate love and compassion. Whereas when we respond with anger and hatred, we are creating cause and condition to destroy our love and compassion. The seed of love and compassion. So when we learn how to respond that, we are creating new cause and condition to cultivation of love, compassion, bodhicitta, we are creating cause condition to fulfill our full potential, fully enlightened state. So there are so many positive things happening at the same time. It's not just sometimes we think, just one thing. I'm practicing patience. That is it. Just one thing happening. But a lot of things are happening. In these cases, when we respond to that, a lot of positive things are happening. When we respond with anger and hatred, not only just we are responding with anger and hatred, of course, at that moment there is no peace, calmness, it disturbs your mind. But also a lot of things are happening. Also many things are happening in negative way, unhealthy way. So it's not just thing. I think every action is not just one. With one action, you are creating so many different cause and condition, different result and different consequences of that actions. Whether it's positive, whether it's negative. The same way here, same. The way we choose to respond. According to the way we choose to respond, we are creating not just one cause and condition, so many different cause and conditions. So many cause and conditions. I think that is, again, we have to remember that my simple actions, whether it's positive or negative, can affect so many in a big way. Sometimes we don't see in that way. Do you get it? I just say some harsh words to you. I just say one harsh word to you and you can't let it go. Do you get it? It seems so simple that because that action is just one effect, but a lot of time that action can have incredible impact in that person's whole life. Not only that person's, hundreds of people's life. I might be saying harsh words to someone, but everyone who is hearing that harsh words, they get differently, and they take differently, and that can have some influence in their life, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. So it's the same thing. We have to consider and think the so many different consequences of one actions. If we understand that, maybe we will be more careful, more mindful, more aware before the way I use my speech, before the way I interact. Because just by one word, depending on how I use that one word, could have a strong impact in that person's life, whole life, whether it's positive or negative way. So it's not just as some kind of harmful at that instant that he felt pain, hurt. It's not just one instant that he or she felt hurt at that moment, but the consequences of that can continue her whole life, his, her life. Not only his, her life, because of that effect in my life, for example, that could affect people around me, the way I respond to others now. And it can have effect for so many other beings. And so therefore, again, so important to be very mindful, very aware, careful of those consequences that it can have, and trying hard to use the right speech, right word, trying to have the right thoughts, right mind, trying to interact in right positive actions. So yeah, I think we will have a short break.
I have a question.
Verse number 39 is again by reflecting and contemplate whether the actions of someone who is in harmful actions, whether that is whether such actions is childish actions or in the nature of childish actions or not, and then through that kind of reflection, letting go of anger, hatred for their actions, and not to have any anger and negative feelings, thoughts. So if even I cannot, oh no, it's 39. Even if it were nature of childish to cause harm to others beings, it would still be incorrect to be angry with them, for this would be begrudging fire for the nature to be burned. So again, reflecting that whether that such actions, the harmful actions that which someone does for yourself or other people, whether it's by nature, whether it's their nature or not, to act in that way. By nature. If it's by nature, that is the way they act that way, then it doesn't seem correct to be angry for acting that way, because that's their nature. And just like fire, if you burn your hand on the fire, and you get pain because of that burn, you don't get angry to the fire, because the nature of fire is burning. That's the way it is. So with knowing that the nature of fire is burning, knowing that, you should be very careful and not to put your hand on the fire, on top of the fire. You have to be more careful when you deal with the fire. Do you get it? When you are dealing with fire, you be more careful, because you know it will burn you if you are not careful. If you put your hand on top of the fire, burning fire, it will burn you. You know that, because that is the nature of that. So you try to keep yourself distant from doing that. In same way, if someone has this kind of nature, very short temper, let's say, short temper, easily very angry, easily very aggressive, maybe because maybe that was maybe due to their previous karmic result, or maybe due to their some upbringing, because they brought in a kind of violence environment, so they grew up in being kind of more aggressive, more violent, because that was when they grew up, that was what they learned. That is the only way they can respond. Maybe that is the only way they can defend themselves. They don't have other way of defending than be aggressive, because they feel threatened by someone, and then maybe the way of, because they feel threatened by someone, so they want to defend themselves. The way to defend themselves is to be aggressive. So some people, that's all they know. They don't know how to defend themselves in a gentle way without being aggressive. For example, so is such are like by nature by themselves, is that they instead of getting angry because for their actions, you have to distance yourself from that person. Be careful, cautious, and distance yourself physically. As a bodhisattva's, as a practitioner in a bodhisattva's way of life or path, we need to have the sense of care, love, compassion, no matter what their nature are, no matter how they respond. But if they are very aggressive in that way, which can be very harmful to you, physically, you have to distance yourself and be careful, not to be too close, too contact with that such, because that is their nature. So it makes more practical sense to distance yourself from such individual than get angry. Being too close to that and get angry all the time, it doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help yourself. It doesn't help that person's or your relationship and so forth. So therefore, with that understanding, yeah, it's just like nature of the water is liquid and weight. If you go in the when it's raining outside without being prepared with whether it's, let's say, umbrella or raincoat and so forth, you get wet and you can't get angry to the rain. That is its nature, being wet. That is how it is. That is very natural. So you have to prepare for that and not to get wet yourself. And same way when you are around with such individuals, if their nature is such like that, then you have to prepare yourself not to get the aggressive response to you. So you have to prepare yourself well enough if you want to be that kind of around that kind of people, that kind of energy. Then you have to prepare yourself not to get that, and so not to get that negative influence. Then verse number 40 again is by reflecting and contemplating whether it is the way their actions, harmful action, whether it is temporary or is by nature itself. And then with that, again, letting go of anger and not to have any anger and grudges, resentment, and so forth. And even if the fault were temporary, in they who are by nature reliable, it would still be incorrect to be angry, for this would be like begrudging space for allowing smoke to arise into it. So again, Shantideva is using all kind of analysis from every angle. First he analyzed in the first verse whether it's by nature or not, which means it's almost like not temporary, but by very nature it is like that. And if it's by very nature, you shouldn't get angry because it's just like fire being burned. But if it's by not nature, by like that, but his or her actions, the harmful actions are temporary, then also again you shouldn't be so angry about it. It's like, for example, if we say, probably we know some people in our life by nature very kind. Okay, we know those persons very well enough. We have observed that by nature those people very kind, very caring, loving, reliable. But sometimes, due to certain circumstances, they lose their mind. Or someone who drink and they lose their mind. Okay? Or certain circumstances happens and then he or she lose mind and then act in a quite aggressive and harmful way. But you know that person so well, you can just let it go. You don't take it so personal and you can let it go. You know, this person is very kind, very caring. But today, he or she, because of certain circumstances, he or she lost. So you can easily let it go, you know. Do you get it what I mean? It's more easy to let it go. Because you understand that person is not so bad person. It's a good person. Is reliable, is a really good person, compassionate person, but today he or she lost mind due to certain situations and he or she was acting not a compassionate way. So because you understand that person, not bad person, then you can kind of easily okay, I can forgive you today. Do you get it? I can let it go today. Because you are not that all the time. If that is, if your actions that all the time, then it's very difficult to let it go, to forgive. It's too what you call, too tiring. You have to learn how to forgive. You have to learn how to let it go every day, every moment, especially for beginner. It will be too tiring, too much to deal with, too much to deal with. But if someone is not like that most of the time, they are very good, compassion, very caring all the time, and once a while, due to certain circumstances, they lose their mind and they act that way. And then it is much easier for us to kind of let it go and that, because you know that is not their real nature. That's their not true nature. It's just circumstances, due to circumstances, sudden temporary reactions of their. So with that kind of understanding, with that kind of, then we try to understand that each and every sentient beings have seed of true love. Understanding with each and every sentient beings have true seed of true compassion. Each and every sentient beings, no matter how there's evil, there's sins from outside, they have Buddha nature, the potential to become Buddha, the potential to become fully enlightened one. Their basic, fundamental nature of mind is undiluted in its nature, is pure. And that they have, all of them have the potential, the seed of love and compassion. So that is their true nature. That is how the people are. As I was saying, I think maybe last week, or last Thursday, one of the things that, good things that, positive things, let's say, that I hear from Nepal is some of those young kids who were kind of in the past where they were fighting in gangster and kind of all these criminal and that kind of things. At this point, when there was earthquake and everything, they really went into those villages, those places, carrying all this, trying to help them. As someone has said, new revolutions or something. All these young peoples, by themselves, not under any organization or government, by themselves, they wanted to support, help, and they were doing all by themselves, going and helping everything in that. And that is what I see. That is the true nature of human beings. Every day they were kind of, because of environment, circumstances, they become criminals or violence, aggressive kind of things. But deep inside, there is that potential, the love, compassion, caring. So when that such tragedy, such a pain happens, that brought their true nature back. Their true nature back, and they are acting on the basis of their true nature, the compassion, sense of care, love. Normally, they were not able to, due to many different external factors and circumstances, we are unable to utilize that true nature. It has been kind of obscured by many different misinformations, misunderstanding, all these blankets of many different obscurations, obstacles. But deep inside, there is that potential. And that when they see the pain, suffering, that just manifests spontaneously, naturally, it just came. So that is so we try to see that. We try to see that in every human beings, even though they seem so aggressive, so violent, so evil with their actions sometimes, but deep inside they have that seed, true love, seed of love, compassion. So with that understanding, then we try to see that is their true nature, and their immediate kind of actions, harmful actions, is temporary. It's not their nature. It can be clear. It can be clear if they have meet the right cause and conditions. If the right cause and conditions comes, that can be clear. That can be clear. So with that kind of understanding, then we try to let it go of our bad feelings, negative feelings, emotions, such as anger, hatred, resentment, grudges, and so forth. I mean, sometimes, it's interesting, sometimes, for example, sometimes you hear some news and something, someone has done an incredibly unimaginable violence, aggressive harm to someone that you can't imagine how human being can do that way. How any human being can even imagine, even forget of doing, even thinking of doing that. It's very hard for us to understand and feel it. But sometimes you hear some of the story of those individuals, why they end up in that situations. Do you know? Sometimes we hear, not everyone, but once in a while you hear story in where they lead to that kind of crazy person. When they were young, they were a very good person, compassion, and then sudden situation happens, and then people around them, and then slowly they become more and more evil, and they lost being in touch with themselves, and they are totally different person themselves. They are not even themselves now anymore, and that's when they act in that way. So when you understand and see those individual story in a detail like that, then you begin to have some feeling for that person, not for their actions. For action is still wrong, and it has to be stopped. But you understand that person. Now I understand why you acted that way. I can understand, I can feel for you. And if I were brought in similar situation, I could have become like you. Do you get it? At the moment, I cannot imagine how, as a human being, how you can act that way. But if I had the same challenge and same way of upbringing, or same kind of all the circumstances that lead him or her to be in that situation, if it was I happen to be in that situation, I could have easily become that person and act same action, which I think now is inhuman, but I could be in a situation where I don't feel that way. Do you get it what I mean? So we begin to feel some understanding. So that is, here we have to make a huge difference. We are not saying that we are fine with their actions. Okay? We totally disagree with the aggressive violence actions. Disagree. It has to be stopped. But we shouldn't have anger, hatred. And the way not to have anger and hatred is to understand that situations. If you understand that actions, then I'm not angry, hatred, but you have to stop. That is not helpful. That's very harmful. So that is what we really have to differentiate. A lot of people, a lot of us, sometimes we get, a lot of time we get mistaken to have, not to have anger, hatred for their actions, and to have love and compassion means we agree with their actions and it's fine. It doesn't mean that. Absolutely no. Absolutely no. So yeah, the example he gives is like smoke in the space, or let's say clouding being clouding. Can you say clouding? Clouding. Cloud obscuring the sun. Cloud obscuring the sun. The blue sky space. We know it is temporary, so you don't get so upset easily, angry. You know that blue sky will come. You know the nature of space is the blue sky. There is a beautiful blue skies. There is a beautiful radiant sun, moon, stars, and you will have. So it is not being. It is obscure, which you don't like at the moment, clouded and obscure, but you know that it's there not for permanently. It will be clear, and you will see the beauty of that. So therefore, you don't get so depressed immediately. You know, because good things are coming. It's not always that bad things. So you don't get so depressed. You don't get so immediately so frustrated so easily. And I mean that does have effect, you know. I've heard a lot of people in some of the country where they don't see the suns or sky for months and months. Naturally they are more depressed because of the whole, and because of course you know you will not be able to see sun for many months and months. It seems like permanent kind of thing, permanent almost. The more you feel that, the more depressing it is and more unhappy. But if you see, yeah, I think it is clouded, but it will go away very soon. It will be clear very soon. It doesn't make you so depressed. You can have the patience to endure a little bit of that cloudiness, obscurations. So similarly, that is where it is trying to understand same way. Someone's acting in that harmful way, but that is not going to be permanent. Is not going to be permanent. It is impermanent. It's temporary. When the right cause and condition comes, things will change. Things will change. And the permanent, I don't know, I wouldn't say the permanent, but the true nature of them is, as I said, the compassion and caring and pure. So I think that is, with that kind of understanding, then it's easy to let go of the bad feelings. Okay. So I think we will have some questions. Yes, please.
So, if there's a person who's harming you, and you can forgive and be compassionate and have understanding, is it okay to let that person go and not have them in your life if they continue to behave in a way that does not, it's not conducive to my lifestyle?
Yeah, I think it is just as it said about the nature of the fire, similarly. So from your heart you should be able to forgive, you should be able to have compassion and understanding, but it is being a very destructive in your life to be by being physically together or too close to that, then it is better. It makes better sense that you distance yourself from such individuals. Yeah, why not? Yeah, that is more said than being angry all the time, being together all the time, and being angry all the time, and then fighting all the time. So it is better in such situation when you try to work together to make things happen, but if despite trying so hard, and if it doesn't work, then I think it's something to think something differently. And so, yeah. Any questions? Any sharing of your thoughts, your yes, please.
Okay, so what I was sort of had a little inkling of, so samsara is like a hospital. And I was thinking mostly about this situation that I was peripherally involved in, so I wasn't really involved in it, but a little bit. So individuals, there's a nature of like if a person has a particular sort of a nature, you know, like and can take advantage of his or her position by taking it, you know, by satisfying their cravings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that person, it's their nature it's our nature as humans to satisfy our cravings if we're not on a path. And even if we think we're on a path and we still have that craving, it means we still really need to work with our minds. And other individuals who are around that person who has those cravings, who hasn't worked with their mind because they allow their cravings free reign, those people then need to also forgive that person because that's that person's nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think forgiving and letting go of all the negative feelings, thoughts, in whatever way that we can.
Yeah, because a lot of the people have kept on to a lot of these really, really bad thoughts about that person. And they really are upset. And mostly that person is now dead, but they're still having these bad thoughts about the event, these experiences they had with that person. So really the only people getting hurt, they're hurting themselves by holding on to that feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the faster, the quicker that one is able to let it go, forgive.
Well, what makes it so hard then? Why is it so hard for us to let go of those feelings? What makes us like that?
I guess one is that we have been so habitually kind of trained not to forgive, not to let it go, and to hold it. That is one thing. If you look from a karmic point of view, that was our very habitual pattern of, instead of responding with let it go and forgiveness, trying to hold in that. So that has been in like kind of that imprint. We have that strong imprint, so that makes it difficult unless someone put a lot of effort in that. And also it depends on how you think about it, you know. We can have, if you just think about the negativities, negative or destructive that he or she has done, then it's more difficult to let it go. But if you see that he or she has also done a lot of good things, and this, so again, it might be more kind of easy to let it go, and understand that we all are human beings, we all make mistakes. No one's, as an ordinary human being, no one is perfect. We all make mistakes. With that understanding, otherwise there is no object of forgiveness. There is no one who is perfect. And also, I mean, forgiveness comes only when someone makes a mistake. And if someone doesn't make mistake, we don't need to forgive anything. So from that kind of perspective, then yeah, we try to let it go.
So also, if you thought someone was perfect and they turned out not to be perfect, then you would even have more anger. Maybe.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. A lot of time that is the, lot of the time that is where, because we feel we have been deceived,
Right.
and
Right.
kind of
Right.
like I have these perceptions. Let's say my teachers is
Yeah.
perfect guru, he can't make any mistake. And then after some time, whether it's due to my own misunderstanding or whatever, that then I make a mistake, then I feel like, oh, I've been kind of misled.
Right.
I've been kind of deceived, cheated,
Yeah.
that even though you are not perfect, you somehow kind of, it could be my own misunderstanding, but to me it seems that you presented you as though you are perfect. Maybe sometimes they might present as they are perfect. Sometimes it's my own projections, and then I feel, now I blame everything there, and then I feel deceived, cheated,
Yeah.
taken advantages, exploited, abused, whatever you call it. So when you feel that, is of course for us it is more difficult to let it go, and feeling of that feeling is more stronger. So it requires much more, I guess it requires a lot of more, much more practice in terms of contemplation, investigation, analyzing, and through different way of, like as Shantideva said, trying to use those different way of looking and see which one, whether it works with you to let it go, and maybe some of them might not fit exactly here, but some of them might fit, and so then which fit that you work in that. Yes.
Is it the cravings themselves per se that are a problem, because like eating a craving, or is it the way you attempt to fulfill your cravings?
I think craving itself is a problem, and then of course trying to fulfill those cravings would be another increasing your craving even more. So craving itself is a problem. Itself is unhealthy, not a positive, distractive, disturbing. But then on top of craving, then you try to fulfill all those cravings, so then it is fueling the craving even more. So your intensity of craving increases and becomes stronger and bigger in that. And also you believe that in order to be happy, you have to fulfill those cravings. And so therefore again you have another different illusions. So craving itself is destructive and unhealthy, but trying to fulfill those craving is even worse. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So,
I think it's maybe more of a comment than a question.
yeah.
So in verses 36 and 37, I was kind of surprised, but not really, how relevant the times, because it was written in the 10th century, right? Was it?
8 somewhere, yeah.
And so when we're talking about the mental obstructions and delusions and taking the life, your own life, you know, so in some ways I was thinking how, I mean, our mind has been deluded since the beginning of time. I mean, I'm thinking more like in the 20th, 21st century, like we increasing the killing and all of that, you know, but back then you would think, well, people didn't have many problems, you know, but still it's so relevant. I mean, you're reading this as if it was written today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like that.
Yeah, it's true. And one of the things I noticed that people often ask me, oh, you have visited many countries, how different it is, and I often find same. I often find, of course, maybe the food might be different, there's some cultural difference, maybe language might be different, landscape might be different, but when you speak person to persons and trying to understand, we all same. Maybe some places, maybe more than other places. Maybe some places there's more intensity of that, and some places there's less intensity of that. But it is same, and because I can, it's hard to. With our own experience, we know it is not easy to deal with our mind, trying to reduce and decrease the delusions require a lot of discipline, a lot of effort, a lot of practice, and a lot of the people even at the time of the Buddha's time, and even now and at Buddha's time, the majority of the people doesn't even know that those delusions are destructive. It never came in their thought. Anger is very destructive to me. They just follow whatever emotion came and they move their life according to that. They never even stop and think whether this emotion is helpful or harmful. Whether this emotion is helpful or harmful. The majority, maybe among 7 billion, maybe 5 billion people have no ideas. They don't even think about that way. And then very few people might have some ideas, maybe those different emotions, some of those emotions are destructive, some of them are constructive and helpful. But some people they know, but they just don't have the discipline, time, practice, whatever that is, and they don't practice. And very few people really, at the Buddha's time and even now, same thing. Very few people really put effort and have the discipline to really practice, to really make change. So because not being able to do that, the delusion is always there. As long as the delusion is there, this will be relevant even after 1 billion years. As long as delusion is there. So because he's talking about the consequences or result of the delusions, and even after 1 billion, as long as we have the delusions, it will be same. Yeah. So yeah. So that was. Any other questions? Yes, please.
I just wanted to add to Vasanta's point that, if you add the layer of the belief around beginningless lives, then that was us, then and even before. So I think it supports your advice to give ourselves a break to a certain extent and be gentle and realistic about how our minds will change, because we're undoing so much of that habit. Centuries, if not eons, wherever you fit on the spectrum of, so it's an incredibly radical undertaking.
Chimpanzees have an incredibly vile, bad temper. Speaking of where we're coming from.
But at the same time, they also have the good side too.
Yeah, we gotta think of that. Sometimes they're very kind to the ones, yeah.
I saw some article and some research which is done. Just again, the research is done to find out what is the human nature, whether human nature is compassion, positive, or whether human nature is aggressive and evil, or whatever you call it. And they have done, according to that research, I forgot who the research, but the research they did with a lot of, mostly with the children's, because we are more true to our nature at that point. Mostly with the children's, and then they did a lot of chimpanzee as well, because again that is the closest our ancestor. So in that their finding in their research, they say chimpanzees they have that the compassion part as in their nature. So I guess there is both of that, just like us. Yeah. And then as I was explaining, I mean, I guess maybe last Thursday as well, maybe. One of the things that positive side that I see, as I mentioned today about this young, those young men in Nepal, some of them, but like every time when we have such a tragedy, all over the world, time to time, we see people coming out spontaneously, naturally, and trying to help each others and and so again, I think that's a really good side that I see, the positive side of the humanity, because a lot of time we don't see that part, and we begin to lose trust in humanity, and we think humans are not good, and they cannot be compassionate, they cannot be loving, they are always aggressive, they are always, because of the, I guess, all the news that we get bombarded every day. So our attention is kind of totally gone toward that, and then to see that positive side balance us to be more, for us to be more kind of more balanced, more balanced, to see the reality better instead of just one-sided, to have some trust, confidence in humanity, that they do have the positive side. It's not just those research shows. It's not just the Buddhist text says, but we observe, we see, directly when people come with that kind of love, affections, care, willing to help immediately, spontaneously. That is kind of verifying those concepts. Yes.
That just made me think of, depression. A lot of depression comes from, I think, people feeling that they're not connected. And like these young people in Nepal, it gave them, just how important it is to connect, basically we all have an opportunity every moment to try to connect. What a gift that is, to give this life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, we can do the dedication.
So let's go to page 100. We'll start with doing the short mandala offering at the conclusion of the teaching, and then we'll do the request for the Lama to remain long in English. Again, page 100. Jai instructions spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of Losam always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the 3 realms. Idam Guru Radha Mandala Gambhirayani. Then we'll go to, did you want to do some dedications first, Geshela, and then we do the prayer?
Maybe I can do the short one. Yeah.
Okay.
So due to all the virtues that we have created, may the Dharma flourish and benefit countless sentient beings. May His One the Lama, Shantideva Lama Sabarambucha, all the gurus have long healthy life. All their wishes were fulfilled. May all sentient beings who have died in those earthquakes and other parts of the world, wherever they are now, may they have peace. May all the suffering, cause of suffering, be immediately pacified. Have perfect human rebirth, meet the Dharma, actualize the Dharma, achieve enlightenment in that lifetime. And may all the people who have been affected by those earthquakes and other forms all over the world, in violence, war, in Middle East, so forth, whatever those wounds are, whether it's physical, emotional, mental wounds, sickness, may they recover from those sickness as quick as possible. May they find a hope. And be strong and move forward in their life, and to be able to find peace, calmness and prosperity, success again, and most importantly, happy and meaningful life. May all sentient beings who are having different obstacles, whatever those obstacles are, may they immediately pacify it. May all their wishes be fulfilled according to the Dharma. Due to teaching on marriage, may oneself and all sentient beings be able to actualize and fully develop true bodhicitta and wisdom, understanding, emptiness as quick as possible. Those who have already actualized not diminish but increase more and more. Due to teacher marriage which empty from its own side, may I which empty from its own side achieve fully enlightened state which empty from its own side, for the benefit of all sentient beings which is empty from its own side, and lead them to a fully enlightened state as quick as possible, which empty from its own side. Okay.
Okay, so we'll recite the names that are on our dedication list. First, for those who have obstacles: Ann Peterson, Barbara, Patrick, Susanna, Martin, Darren, Alan, the Kirpas family, Riggs and Dolma, people in Nepal, Dawn, Mary and Richard, Clay, Kim Kerr, Israel, Jessica, Paul, Charlene, Bobby, Ian, Chris S., Mary Lynn, David L., Jeremiah S., Maria G., Tracy King, Kathy Morales, Sarah, Karen, Martin's family, Emily, Keith, Rose family, Bob Jacobson, Zeke Sherman, Richard Dupsloff, Charles Rourke, Martha Manga, Chacha the dog, Scolati family, Joanne, Laura, Julie, Jeannie, Mary, Ken, Jim, Marcy, and any others who we're holding in our hearts. Then those who have illness: Tom Peterson, Thich Nhat Hanh, Diego, Mirelle, Sammy, Shay, Meg, Nan, Arlene, Susan, Suzanne, Rudy, Kristen, Alvaro, Louis, Denise, Loretta, Asa, Joe, Lisa Cook, Odetta the dog, Judith, Glenn Clavert, David, Sonia, Cora, Margaret, Mark K., Michael Graves, Nancy Fox Krutz, Linda R., Kevin, Sarah H., Ivy, Gavin P., Embry, Kathy Anderson, Eric, Bodie the dog, Wayne, Marvin Johnson, and again any others that we're holding in our hearts. Then for those who have died or who are dying now, Leroy Horpadal, Sonam Rabke, Tenpa, Judy, Tim's dad, Bill Preston, Jenny, Mike Samu, Martin, Nepal victims, Isabel, Kaylee Scalati, TJ Ducross, Nick Scalati, Joan Rutherford, Joe Jensen, Cody, and again any others that we're holding in our hearts. Let's go forward to page 235 for the prayer book. We'll do the first two prayers there in Tibetan, dedicating all the merit. And then on page 244, the two prayers there for His Holiness and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Gabri Rawe Korwe Chingham Dir Andam Dewa Malu Jongwe Ne Chenre Zingwan Tenzin Yatso Yi Jabne Site Pardu Tengyur Chi. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers, honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, with his disciples, please, please live long. We also dedicate for the good health and long life of Geshe Tupten Sherip, all of our other spiritual guides. May we and others never be parted from such perfect guides in all our lifetime.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.